Well, good day to you all. This is Joseph from Adjuvant Protocols for Healing. We continue our journey looking at the various conditions that are in my book of 500 different protocols, and also some of the supplements that are so key to human health. And this month, we're going to devote our time to the B vitamin complex. More than likely, as you well know, I probably won't get to all of this information. And so fear not, this is being recorded, and I will continue part 2 next month if needed. You're going to hear today and see some information that not too many people, even standard process, have seen. And that is compliments of our great friend, Mark Anderson, the historian of standard process, as far as I'm concerned, and great teacher. We just spent the weekend with him with almost 500 practitioners in Loveland, Colorado, and it was really something special. The B vitamin complex. Now, remember that these are all recorded and put along with the other 55 YouTube lectures. Thanks to Lynn Mayer reorganizing them and other people, Ellen Lamolt and other friends that have helped me with this YouTube channel. So these are all available to you free of charge, of course. If you don't have the book, of course, you can go to Saline River Press, and that book is for your purpose, for your purposes in your in your own personal life, your family, and of course, all of your clients. So let's get into the B vitamin complex. Now, with reductionism now, they think of B vitamins as synthetic substances. They can duplicate them in a laboratory, and very few B vitamin supplements are from natural sources. So we'll talk a little bit more about it, but I wanted to honor at least some people who have the awareness how important the B vitamin complex is, even in the synthetic form. There is some awareness. We know that it is not complete, so it's not fully utilized, and we'll get into that. So here's this medical doctor and I'm sure writer and speaker, Dr. Uma Nadu, who wrote this article. She's a Harvard nutritionist. This just came out in Health and Wellness. This is their monthly magazine. What is the number one vitamin that keeps your brain, her brain, healthy? Now, we don't talk much and haven't talked much about the B vitamins in our brains. But one of the things, of course, we're seeing, and I have spoken about this, I've done lectures on it, as far as Alzheimer's and dementia. Well, here we are again. Here we are again looking at malnutrition and its relationship with disease and inflammation throughout the body. As a nutritional psychiatrist, I always make it a point to maintain a well-balanced diet. And it's good. She's talking about herself, her own life, which is a good place to start. And it's impressive. It impressed me, this article, and her attitude that it starts with me. Much of that has to do with making sure I get all the right vitamins, especially because it's essential to preventing cognitive decline. And given that the risk of neurological diseases increases as we get older, good for you. I'm so glad that she has this awareness and is singing that song. And because it is just not spoken about in medical science, it's just not. One question I often get from patients is, what is the best vitamin for protecting our brains? Each of our microbiomes is like a thumbprint. It's true. There is no other microbiome like yours. Just like the thumbprint, the iris of the eye, tongue patterns, many other signs in the body. The microbiome is unique to that individual. So as truly effective eating plan is personalized to unique needs of an individual, but the vitamin group I polarize the most to keep my brain young and healthy are B vitamins. So I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I wanted to go through what they're thinking about this, about each of the B vitamins. B1 or thiamine. Now we know, and we have worked with this with the heart sound recorder, we know that synthetic thiamine alone does not do the job. Think of all the synthetic B vitamins that are being taken, and yet depression, anxiety, Alzheimer's, cognitive function is all on the increase, not to mention cardiovascular. And yet they still, I'm just making clear to all of us together that for sure there's something missing here, and that is the food element, which we'll get to. But let's look and see what she has to say, because at least she's saying something. Thiamine is the crucial or basic function of our cells and the metabolism of nutrients for energy. The brain is one of the most metabolically active organs in your body, which means it needs the support of thiamine to prevent the deficiencies that can lead to neurological problems down the line. If it were a true thiamine, if it was truly that part of the B complex that has the B1 and the B4, the B4 FOUR, the B4 element is the partner. The reason these conditions that we've talked about related to the brain are so outstanding, because the B1 is missing its dance partner. It can't play the full role that it needs to play in the human body. Dr. Lee talked about this. We'll look at it today or next month, but here it is. Strikingly absent, rejected, not understood, never proven. Well, we have proven it. So here is B2, riboflavin, acts as an assistant to enzymes in our cell that carry out important reactions, such as in the body and brain. It also helps to grow cells. So there's a lot of information in her writing that is good as a reminder to us. Produce energy and break down fats. Here is the element of the B2 and the B3 factor, which we'll get to in a second, that John Courtney taught me from the beginning. The G side, the B2 side of the B complex has lipotropic factors. It's the first thing he said when he talked about G. That's the lipotropic side, the fat-soluble side of the B complex. It helps break down fats. So here it is. Even now they're saying it, which is good. The external materials like medications and external materials like medications. So you get people on a lot of medications. You have to have them on the right kind of B2. It's great that she's teaching this way, in my opinion. This is a great article, and I'm just going to go through her main ones. The next one is niacin, which we're going to really get into niacin today, more than you've heard from any other teacher other than Mark. works more than 400 enzymes. Yes, I'm going to read that again. Vitamin B3 or niacin works with more than 400 enzymes to produce materials like cholesterol and fat needed within the body. That's right. It helps produce cholesterol and to convert energy for all our organ systems. Niacin is also an antioxidant, which helps reduce excess inflammation. What about B? So there is no B4 in their minds, but there is in ours. And that, as I say, is the partner, the complementary element to the thiamine hydrochloride or the thiamine substance that we all need. The next is pantothenic acid. Vitamin B5 is essential for making a molecular compound called coenzyme A, which helps our body's enzymes build and break down fatty acids for energy. Now, can you see as she goes through this how important B vitamins are, not just for the brain, but for everything related to the brain? Fats. What is the brain? 60 to 70% fat. It also helps our cells generate ACYL, carrier proteins, helping to produce necessary fats, the good fats. The brain is primarily fat, so pantothenic acid is among the most important vitamins in supporting brain health. Now, one of my original teachers talked about pantothenic acid. Now, remember, as we go through this for the next 3 hours between today and next month, we have to realize that they're talking about high potency amounts, but you don't need that. You need absorbable amounts. You need the pantothenic, the B5 from food sources. The body uses 100% of it instead of loading the body with synthetic pantothenic acid or any of the other B vitamins and hoping the body can figure out how to utilize them, which in a lot of cases it can't. B6, here it is, number 5, fight diseases, or paradoxine is notable for its role in disease prevention. Now, these are thoughts that maybe we haven't heard. I certainly haven't, because proper levels of this vitamin is associated with lower risk of a number of cancers. Additionally, paradoxine helps make chemical reactions in the body that support immune function and brain health. Here's vitamin B7 or biotin, most commonly known as that, regulates cell signals for quick and effective communication throughout the body in the brain. It's crucial for cellular signaling via neurotransmitters. So again, if this were true, people with neurotransmitter issues, i.e. nervousness, excitability, inability to calm down, would be working. But again, these are all synthetic sources and not natural. And so here we go back to needing food sources of these B vitamins. And I'll get to that in a second as well. But so now, number 7, of course, keeping you balanced. Vitamin B9, called folic acid, is a popular supplement and a key vitamin for supporting brain and neurological health. So remember that you can think of folate, folic acid, as the alpha vitamin. This is how Mark Anderson teaches it. The alpha, the beginning of life part of the B vitamin complex. And optimal neurotransmitter function and balance physiological, psychological health. Another benefit is that it helps encourage cellular detoxification. So you could say, well, I'm almost 72. I don't have to worry about all of this for my brain. I don't that the role folate plays, but it does help with cellular detoxification as well. The omega vitamin at the end of life is the cobalamin. The vitamin B12 is an essential vitamin for forming red blood cells and DNA. The carrier of the information, the carrier of the blueprint, the genetic formulation to make healthy, normal cells is assisted by vitamin B12. Now, we know that without stomach parenchyma, which is destroyed by acid blocking substances, you can't absorb B12. So make that in your notes. You can't have good B12 absorption. In fact, you can't have any without that stomach parenchyma, which you'll see is in it's in Cataplex B12 by standard process and supporting the development of function of the nervous system, especially as we age, all the way through life. But B12 also supports the breakdown of homocysteine, a protein that can negatively impact cardiovascular health and lead to dementia when in excess. So there are the ones. This is a great article, and I really appreciate, as I say, I appreciate her writing this for us and getting this out to the public. So really the fullness of life, the breath of life in every cell has to do with what's known as the Krebs cycle. Now, I put a slide in here if you don't know what the Krebs cycle is and the production of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. You can read about that. It will put you right to sleep. I guarantee it. Read it if you're having trouble sleeping or you can't get back to sleep at night. You read about the Krebs cycle, it'll put you right out. However, knowing about it and understanding it, at least in part, which is pretty much nobody knows it fully, but B vitamins are essential to the Krebs cycle, to the production of ATP. To understand how the B vitamins support energy production, remember cellular respiration, the breath in every cell in the body. It's helpful to understand the process of energy production in the body. When you eat food, it's broken down into smaller molecules during digestion so they can be absorbed. The smaller subunits from carbohydrates, fat, protein are used to make or store energy in your cells. Carbohydrates are your body's preferred fuel because it acts right away, of course. It's immediate energy because they are easily turned into energy. It's immediate. Still, the body can use protein and fat for energy, but that's stored. That's for slow production of energy. If carbohydrates are scarce in your diet, as seen in ketogenic diets, carbohydrates are broken down to sugar or glucose, which enters the bloodstream and can be taken up by cells for immediate energy or stored for later. But we don't just store nutrients. Instead, they are turned into a specialized energy storage molecule called adenosine triphosphate, ATP. Energy from your food goes through a series of complex metabolic pathways where it's converted into ATP inside your cell. The breath of life, everyone. This is how Joseph is saying it. The breath of life. Here, this is what we're talking about. ATP is what powers cellular processes like breathing. There it is, thinking and moving. Where do B vitamins come in? Without B vitamins, here it is. Here's the punchline. The chemical reactions to make or use ATP can't occur. This whole process of the cellular breath of life, which means the breath of life everywhere, in our bodies, our minds, and our hearts, is all consequent on B vitamins. So you can read this article, but I want to just finish with this. The conversion of food into energy requires a series of enzymatic reactions. So you're probably saying, well, why does B vitamin? Well, here it is. Enzymes are proteins that act as catalysts for processes in the body. The B vitamins, here it is. The B vitamins act as coenzymes or enzyme helper molecules to support your metabolic processes. So you say you have clients coming in. The client says, I have very slow metabolism. You know, of course, you think of thyroid. You think of the autonomic, the balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic, but also think of B vitamins. They are needed for the energy-producing enzymes to do their job. In other words, B vitamins help your body convert food into energy, and they are needed for enzymes that store or release energy in your body to work. It's great. It's a great article, and I hope you like these articles that I find. And then if you really want to get into the citric acid cycle, which is also is another name for the Krebs cycle, you can do it. And so let's go a little further. So this was part of, and this whole presentation is part of an article that I wrote many years ago on the B vitamins. So here was the title, the front page, which brings it back to the B vitamins from food. The B vitamins that are a part of living food substances. What we know as the B vitamin complex consists of a far-reaching range of organic substances that have a dramatic effect throughout the entire body. All of the human organs and glands benefit from the B vitamins, but the two most profound are the nervous system and the digestive systems. The B complex are water-soluble compounds known as coenzymes, right? Just read that doctor's article. Their primary purpose is to act as a catalytic spark plug that stimulates their enzyme helpers, biochemical reactions, improve fat, protein, and amino acid metabolism, and to normalize nerve function, preventing stress and fatigue. In the notes that follow, an outline of the function uses the sources of the natural B vitamin complex, the natural, from food complex, will be arranged in two specific formats called Cataplex B, now called Cataplex B Core, though Cataplex B is still there, and gluten-free Cataplex B is still there. But you'll see why this Cataplex B Core has become so significant and in the top 5 selling products in standard process now. You'll see why. I'll explain why. That'll probably be next month before I can dive into that part of the B complex, and cataplex G, now called cataplex B2. Now, you'll remember that what was called cataplex G for Dr. Goldberger, that's what it was named after, has B2 and B3 and other B vitamins in it. So why they call it B2, I do not know. It doesn't matter. It's the same formula, and you'll understand when we get done today much, much more about that. Each group of these vitamin elements provides a different range of nutrient for the body chemistry, and therefore have a unique physiological unique physiological effects. Now, Dr. Lee and other physicians since him have successfully defined and utilized these two groups of B vitamin complex for over 75 years. Well, that's how long ago I wrote this article. It's 93 years now, I think, or 90, somewhere in there. Yes. 92 years. And they work just as effectively now as they did in 1929. Now, listen, everyone, what is true? What is the truth of any thought, action, feeling is always true. It never changes. And that's why I put this in here years ago, and it's still true. The principles of what these substances do from food continue to work. Even though called B now called B core, and G called B2, emphasize different factors for specific purposes, they will always exist in a food base of the complete B complex. This is probably the most significant sentence in these three paragraphs. 4. Because whenever you look at it, the B vitamins must all be together because that's how nature made them. The B vitamins are never separated out in food, in nature. They're always together, and they must be together. Otherwise, the body cannot utilize them unless the whole family is there. So let's just briefly go through some of the B vitamin facts. And now B vitamins convert, as we read earlier, glucose, carbohydrates to glucose, improve fat, protein, and amino acid metabolism, normalizes nerve function. Now, that's the B1, B4 fraction. And without the B4, this cannot be fulfilled. Normalizing nerve function just with thiamine alone it can't be done. And it hasn't been done. There's more arrhythmic patterns in people now than ever in human history. And that's why we're looking at this today. Because it must be from nature to make it complete, to work with the nervous system so it can function as it's designed to function. Because the nervous system is getting the nutrients that are designed to balance it. Isolated B vitamins, that's not how the nature designed it. Prevents fatigue, stress, relaxes the nervous system, brings energy to most body systems. So where are the primary influences with the B vitamins? The skin, the hair, the eyes, the liver. We talked about the brain and its hundreds of intricate processes, the mucosal lining from the mouth to the anus, muscle tone, the heart and other muscles smooth muscles throughout the body, for GI tract and heart especially. So here are some other facts. B vitamins are not stored well in the body. You've heard me say it many times on the heart sound recording calls. Your B vitamins, they're water soluble. They last about 3 days, 72 hours. That's it. Then they're not there. Now, if you're eating foods that are good foods that are ample in B vitamins, that's good. So what are some of those foods? Well, the primary ones, of course, we know are meat, fish, and dairy. The others are, whole wheat breads, vegetables, nuts, and yeast extracts. They're your foods that are highest. But if people aren't getting those, and you'll see what happened in this country in the early 1900s when they weren't getting those factors. B vitamins are absorbed mainly in the small intestine. This is why if there is a condition known as SIBO, small intestinal dysbiosis, one of the big things that suffers is B vitamin absorption, which cascades into all kinds of symptomatology. And you're thinking, man, this person's got a lot going on. Yes, the small intestine must be kept in good health. B vitamins are easily destroyed. Well, let's see. The number one element that I put in here is heat. If you heat B vitamins above body temperature, unless it's a synthetic, and therefore, that isn't complete anyway. It's not going to satisfy what the body needs. The body doesn't even recognize an incomplete B vitamin complex. You may get a little bit, but you see these patterns throughout the health of the United States and the world because of the use of synthetic B vitamins. So heat is really crucial. Nicotine, now we think of nicotine destroying vitamin C, but also vitamin B. Fasting and dieting. We have to really be careful of fasting and dieting. Whenever I have taken people on cleanses, if I've done cleanses myself or just resting my body, you must keep taking your B vitamins. And I've had clients say, well, I went to this practitioner and did a nice cleanse, but they took me off all our supplements. You can take them off, all of them, except for B vitamins. Must have B vitamins if you're fasting and dieting. Sunlight. Now, we know that sunlight has an effect on more calcium and vitamin F than too much D and not enough F and calcium, but also B vitamins. And of course, sugar. Sugar, coffee, alcohol, teas, processed foods, all destroy B vitamins. And, a lot of clients that I work with and, through the Bain Consulting now, I've only been doing it a couple weeks, but some of the cases that have been presented to me, I say they have to get off alcohol and coffee, chocolate. Oh, well, I don't know if they'll do that. Well, if you don't do it, and I'm not going to go into the reasons for that, but one of the reasons is I know they won't get the coenzymes in the B vitamin complex or in the B through the food they're eating to correct these imbalances. And here is the final one, but not the last in importance. B vitamins balance the pH in the GI tract. Joe, I've got them on lactic acid yeast and Zymax and probiotics, but I can't get that GI balance. I can't get that, the biome. Remember, she talked about it earlier with one of the specific B vitamins, I forgot which one, that affects the gut biome, the pH, the actual chemical balance in that environment is regulated because B vitamins are present. So I read you some of the foods. I'm not going to read this again. And these are the ones that I recommend for B vitamins in order of importance. Again, here. And the one product, one comment I want to make here is milk has to be raw. When you boil milk, when you pasteurize it, remove all the fat, the B vitamins are gone. That's why they have to add it back in synthetically. But in nature, raw milk. So join a co-op, have them mailed to you. Get your raw dairy, your raw milk from somewhere. So there are places that you can get it and it's shipped to you. Don't drink pasteurized milk. It's a dead food. And it's void of the proper B vitamins. Look at standard process, though. Remember I said to you, what is true is always true. You know, Dr. Lee started with cattle in 1929, B vitamin. We know the Cataplex B2 now and the B core. Drenamin has it. Choline is a B vitamin. Inositol, these are standalone products. Niacinamide. Now, you know, if you use choline and you use inositol or the powder, you must take the B complex with it. Write that down in your notes. If you haven't been writing notes, you write that down. Do not take choline and inositol on its own, because those two are synthetic. But you need those two in high dosages to do what they're supposed to do. Choline as a fat emulsifier, inositol as the muscle sugar vitamin and blood sugar balancer. But you must take it with either Cataplex B2 or B core. Take them together. Because in order for them to do their job, being emphasized for one need or the other, it has to be complete. It has to be combined with food substances. Niacinamide, B6, this should say, I forgot to put that in there. Cataplex B12, trace minerals B12, Cardio Plus, Vasculin, B6 niacinamide, folic acid, and Immuplex. All of these, and most of them, I didn't write in here, most of them, especially the B12s and the products, Immuplex, have that stomach parenchyma so that B12 can be absorbed, as I say. So if you're looking at Cataplex B, now called Cataplex B Core, I'm going to wait on that. I'm going to move this one till next month. But I'm going to actually start with the other side of the Cataplex, the B complex. Now, Dr. Lee early on, which is how the B complex was looked at in the very beginning. It was divided into vasodilating, which is what we called Cataplex G, now called Cataplex B2, the vasodilating side, and the vasoconstricting side. So, which is this Cataplex B core side, which we'll get to in a little bit. Now, I don't like to use the word vasoconstricting because people think, well, if I give this to clients, it's going to raise their blood pressure. It isn't. Really should be written in here, tonification. Because the arteries and veins can get very flaccid. They can get very loose. That's the other extreme of them getting very tight and rigid. The capillaries can get very loose and flaccid under the skin, and then you bang your skin and they break open. They have no tone. That's why you need this part of the B complex. But let's focus in on why this was such a crucial area of the B complex and why the formulations are made as they are. So cataplex G, B2 now, John Courtney said, this is for the person that can never relax, that your type A personality, they're jittery, they can't calm down, they're always moving, they're shaking their legs, twirling their hair, picking their nails. And so that's how you characterize between the two. And so you could say, well, Joe, that's most everybody. Well, it's true. That's why cataplex G cannot be underestimated by most people, that you need to either use it with the cataplex B core or rotate them. You can do 3 days of cataplex B core and then 3 days of G. I take them both every day. I mean, sitting right here at my desk here, right here, is cataplex B core and cataplex B2. I'm looking at them right now. I always take them together because I don't want to leave anything for chance. I want to give my body all that it can possibly have. So what are some of the symptoms or characteristics of this side of the B complex? This is, your B2 niacin. Here it is, right here. I wrote it all out here. I haven't really taught this in so long. Here it is. This is what's in cataplex B. B2, B3, B6, choline, betaine. You'd say, is betaine part of the B complex? It is. Inositol, folic acid, and PABA. There is what is emphasized. Now you could say, well, isn't B1 in there? Yes, it is. Is B4 in there? Yes, but it's not emphasized. So when they made the formula, they just emphasized certain foods that would bring out these substances, these unique parts of the B complex. So shortened diastolic rest period. This is for the person with tic-tac rhythm. Their heart is always going. The heart that when they get into bed at night, they can hear it pounding. And it's too fast, the fast pulse person, because it's a coronary relaxant. It influences intercellular metabolism by aiding the rapid production of cells, increasing the healing process, and assisting in the recovery from viral invasion. What? Joe, did you ever tell me that G is for viruses? Yes, I did. Now, I say so much in my lecture, you may have missed some of it. It's the #1 product for warts, any kind of wart, any kind of viral infection, is the B2, B3 factor. In fact, at Colorado State University here, 15 miles down the road from my house here, they were doing experiments with COVID, of it knocking out that virus successfully. Now, what happened to those experiments? I don't know, but they were doing them there. It was in the paper. And I guess I could find you that, but you could always look it up. So remember that if you're taking cataplex G, B2, now called, you're really it's playing a part with breaking down and assisting from the recovery from viral invasion, but knocking viruses out. Now, is it knocking it out entirely? No, but it's supporting the immune system so it can finish the job. It benefits the digestive processes by calming hyperperistalsis activity and allows healing for the parietal cells of the stomach and the pancreas to take place. It's an enzymatic tranquilizer. That's right. So your person, the keyed up person, John would say, with ulcers, and I would say, well, what other conditions, John? People with ulcers need to take G. People with colitis, G. So there's been so much talk, which is all valid, for the Cataplex B core, which has a lot of G in it. But don't underestimate the power of taking this product as a standalone or rotate it with your other Bs, as I say. It increases the synapse of the myoneural junction, where the nerve and the muscle meet. And that synapses, that crossing over from one tissue to the other, from nerve tissue to muscle, here it is. It increases that connection. So what person, anybody with MS, anybody with muscular dystrophy, multiple sclerosis, anybody that is not, their nerves are not connecting well with their muscular structure in age, where the neurological impulse is delayed or absent, especially in the case of paralysis, dystrophy, or ptosis. Potassium is essential here as well. Now, we're not going to get into that, but potassium is the partner to Cataplex G. As you well know, we use it for people's hearts that can't rest at night after they've had a lot of sugar. But you've heard me talk about that before. Other implicated conditions are angina pectoris, coronary insufficiency, that fast boom, 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 stomach spasms, and general nervousness. So your type A personality. And what are the sources? Of course, we know yeast, brain. As we said in the very beginning, B is essential for brain function, but really the organ with the most B in it is the brain. And that's why we use porcine brain as one of the ingredients. Wheat germ, and mental depression, disorders in fat metabolism, vasoconstriction, coronary insufficiency, tissue degeneration, ulcers, GI disorders. So here is that whole page, what we could have spent the whole hour on it. So I'm going to skip the beriberi and the thiamine deficiency, and we'll talk about that next time. Because let's go on to pellagra, because I do want to get to this video to finish up our time here. Pellagra is a disease caused by low levels of niacin, vitamin B3, also known as vitamin B3. It is marked as the 3 Ds: dementia, diarrhea, and dermatitis, known as the 3 Ds. Mark Anderson says there's a fourth. It's called death, because that's exactly what happens. Now, in this day and age, we don't think of it. If left untreated, pellagra can be fatal, and it was fatal for a long time. They didn't know what pellagra was, which we'll get into in a second. But there are lesser conditions, lesser symptomatology that they don't call pellagra, that are forms of low-grade pellagra, in my opinion. While it's much less common than it used to be, thanks to advances in food production, adding synthetic B3 in. So it has helped, but it's not enough. It's still a problem in many developing countries. Listen, everyone, it's still a problem in this country. It can also affect people whose bodies don't properly absorb niacin. The main symptoms of pellagra are the three: skin issues, brain issues, and bowel issues. Dermatitis, dementia, diarrhea. Do you have anybody? Do you have anybody that has this symptomatology and you haven't brought in the B vitamin factors? Bring in the G, bring in that B2. This is because niacin, niacin's B3, so you need both, which is, the product hasn't changed. This is because niacin deficiency is most noticeable in body parts with high rates of cell turnover, such as your skin, GI tract, by the way, cancer. Dermatitis related to pellagra usually causes a rash on the face, lips, feet, hands. What about other rashes? Do you know how many calls I get every month? Joe, they took this, my granddaughter, using the tape because she's a soccer player at a university. She used the tape and had some kind of a sensitivity or reaction. I don't think it was an allergic reaction. She was just sensitive to the chemicals. She needs the G. Yes, other things, not steroids, which probably they put her on. She needs calcium and G. In some people, dermatitis forms around the neck, a symptom called calcial necklace. So when you get red, flaky, listen to these symptoms, everyone. Now you know you've got clients. Maybe yourself have had these. Load the G up. Now remember, when you take B2 and niacin, B2 is a yellow pigment. So I've had clients call me, Joe, you got me on this Cataplex G and I'm peeing orange juice. It's yellow. Good. I want to see that in your urine. That means you're getting that saturation at the cellular level. And now the excess is being urinated out. That's good. So, but red, flaky skin, areas of discoloration ranging from red to brown, thick, crusty, scaly, or cracked skin. Think of all your skin conditions: dermatitis, psoriasis. In my opinion, they're all forms of what we're calling pellagra. Itchy, burning patches on the skin, they will never call it that. They won't. But that's what it is. What are some of the other symptoms of pellagra? In some cases, the neurological signs of pellagra appear early on, and they're often hard to identify. As the disease progresses, possible dementia symptoms include: how much dementia is in this country now? Perhaps the world, but especially this country. Well, Joe, but they're on all the foods with B3, which pellagra is a B3 deficiency, but it's not complete. We have to complete the B vitamins in order for the B3 to do its job. It can't come in as a standalone. You can load it. You can give them so much B3, niacin, that they're having flushes. Still not going to do its job. Apathy, depression, confusion, irritability, mood changes, headaches, restlessness, anxiety. These are the people that sit there shaking their leg. Discoloration and delusions. There's a lot of people deluded right now. It's a lot of confusion in this country right now. You think G is needed? Sores on the lips, tongue, gums, decreased appetite, trouble eating and drinking, nausea and vomiting. Any digestive issue. Pellagra is a systemic nutritional wasting disease caused by a deficiency of vitamin B3, which is an essential component of several coenzymes. Besides ingestion, Niacin can be synthesized from its natural precursor, the amino acid tryptophan. Yes, I'm going to read that. It can be synthesized from its natural precursor. Well, I've got them on G, Joe, but they're not responding. If they're deficient as well in tryptophan, then you know that even if you're using the whole G, because it must have its precursor. Well, so what does precursor mean? To go before, to prepare the way. That's what a precursor means. A process that requires two other B vitamins, B2 and B6. So you need the B vitamins for the tryptophan, and you need the tryptophan for the B3. See, can you see how food? That's why I've said it so much, and I will continue to say it. We must have these food sources. Pellagra occurs when an intake of niacin and tryptophan are low, primarily, or when conversions of the essential amino acid to the coenzyme secondary is impaired. So you can read that article. On the heart sound recorder, if you're still sitting by your desk, you can see that we can see it on the graph in the mitral and tricuspid. It's known as a pre-systolic. So there's the systole. And then the second sound is that the diastole. But the systole, the first sound, the lub, there's a narrowing that happens of cholesterol and fat around that valve, the lower valves, the mitral and tricuspid. And the sensor, i.e. the microphone, can pick up the motion of that, the blood being constricted. Slub, slub. Now, it's hard to hear it, but we can see it. You can see it there, you can see it here, you can see it here. And this person has a real B deficiency because they also have regurgitation or leakage on the right side, not bad, and they have a split sound. That's why I've used this to teach. So, but I wanted to just spend 1 second on this tryptophan piece related to the B vitamins. Tryptophan deficiency is known to be associated with pellagra, right? Glossitis. So what is glossitis? Hold on 1 second. Just so you know, inflammation of the tongue. And this is why in different cultures, in naturopathy, in Ayurveda, they look in the person's mouth. Now, my dental hygienist, she checks everything in my mouth, the tongue, under the tongue, the glands around the mouth, all of it. And that's good. We need to know what's going on, but inflammation of the tongue is glossitis. Of course, gingivitis, right, is cracks in both corners of the mouth, right? I'm sorry, that's cheilitis. And stomatitis. So all of these conditions, stomatitis is painful or swelling sores inside the mouth. Stomatitis may be caused by a disease, an infection, allergic reaction, or irritation from foods or chemicals. Person comes in and they say, you know, when I eat strawberries, I get irritation in the inside of my mouth. they say, well, I keep biting my tongue and the tongue gets very swollen and irritated. Is it because it's being bitten or is it there already? And that's why you're biting the tongue. This is a tryptophan deficiency, everyone, along with G. Blepharitis is an inflammation of the eyelids. So we want to look at people or make sure that they observe them as they come in. Our first look at people, check their mouth, look at their eyes. An inflammation of the eyelid that affects the eyelashes or tear production. People can come in and they say, I've had so many questions on this. They say, oh, their eyes don't water. Yeah, well, that's a tryptophan and a G deficiency, everyone. And this is why, of course, conjunctivitis, that's very common. That's an infection, but that also is a G deficiency along with tryptophan. And of course, keratitis is an inflammation of the clear tissue on the front of the eye cornea. So when they get that glazing over, that effect, very mucosal, along with mental confusion, melancholia, lethargy, depression, apprehensiveness, sensitive to light. There's an easy one. People who wear sunglasses, oh, I'm sensitive to light. That's a deficiency. That's a nutritional deficiency here. Edema, degeneration of the heart muscle, anemia, headaches, insomnia. That's from just one of the 22 amino acids. And of course, Dr. Lee was very, very concerned about these heat labile amino acids. Now, why am I touching into this for a few minutes? Because you've got to put it, as nutritionists, we've got to put it together. We can't just give them the G. We have to understand the other factor, the tryptophan factor. So very shortly, when you cook a protein, you destroy certain parts of that protein. The proteins are composed of what we know chemically as amino acids. Your body doesn't build, by the way, new cells from proteins. It builds them from amino acids derived from proteins. Remember that. They're the building blocks of that protein. All proteins contain one or another of about 22 amino acids is what's taught. About half of those amino acids are necessary to life. Those are the heat labile, they're destroyed by heat. The other half can be made out of the things inside the human body. In other words, some of the amino acids can be converted into others. Some cannot. Those that cannot are termed the essential amino acids. Those are the ones that are destroyed by heat, everyone. It is those essential amino acids, which are fractions of foods that we cannot live without. Lysine, tryptophan, methionine, and the other 8. But he was talking about those 3 in particular, are destroyed by cooking in contact with sugar. Now, how many of our proteins are cooked in contact with sugar? Well, milk is one. Your heated milk, the proteins in heated milk and pasteurized milk is useless. It's a useless substance. Milk contains milk sugar, so that when you pasteurize milk, you're impairing its food value, just as destroying certain amino acids. You're destroying enzymes themselves because no enzymes can survive temperatures of pasteurization. That's how the health department tests the milk to find out it's been pasteurized. They simply examine to see if there's any enzymes left. Listen, everyone, if you don't have enzymes, it's not a living food. It's dead. Raw milk. If there's no enzymes, okay. If there is, the dairy company gets a fine. Just like burning down the house to kill the rat. That's right. So you're probably thinking, well, this whole cataplex G, this B2 side of the B complex and tryptophan. Where am I going to get this? Protofood has more tryptophan than any other product. Now, you could say anything with 22 amino acids in standard process, Calcifood, the whey products, any of the whey products will have all 22. But the product that emphasizes the 8, what are they? He named 3. Good amounts of lysine, tryptophan, methionine in particular is Protofood. John Courtney said, even if they take 3 a week, one Monday, one Wednesday, one Friday, Joe, I remember him telling me that over the phone, they'll get enough. That's how important. It's not the potency of these. It's the completeness of these. The completeness determines the function. It's functionality. You can't just throw one amino acids at somebody. That's what the weightlifters do. It's not going to work. It's going to create imbalances. So in this conversation I had with John over the phone, he goes, Joe, I'm going to write you an article. Because I asked him, what is the most important product standard process makes? And here's quotes from the article. Protofood is the most important product standard process makes because of the amount of tryptophan. So when we look at this and we look at pellagra itself, it's not talked about. Well, there's no pellagra in this country. I disagree. There are lesser versions of it. We see it all the time. So it's simple. The message today is simple. Get them on the Cataplex G and get them on Protofood. In a nutshell. Now, pellagra was a plague. It was thought it was a plague in the beginning of the 20th century, the early 1900s. And there was a doctor who Dr. Lee made G after, formulated that product in honor of him, Dr. Goldberger. Here is a short, to end this session, a short video on that was done. It's only 10 minutes long. You've got to hear this because very few have seen this. Mark sent this to me the other day. I didn't even know it existed. Told the story of pellagra. And so here it is. And then Lynn, just text me if you're still on. Text me if you can hear it. So I'm going to put this on now. Okay. So, and I'll just read you this. This is an article on Dr. Goldberger. And it talks about Dr. Goldberger's struggle to convince his colleagues of his findings reflects the tremendous sway that germ theory held in medicine at the time. They thought this pellagra, they were isolating these children and these guys and men and women in prison because they thought they had some kind of bacteria or virus. They were keeping them away because people were dying at such rapid rates. And which stubbornly continues to dominate the field view of health and disease today. The pathogen is nothing. The deficiency is everything, everyone. And so here is this short 10-minute video, and then I'll have some closing words today.
many generations, men have spoken and sung of the romantic South, the South of river steamer, banjo-plunking Negro, and queenly home. But there was another South that had never recovered from disastrous war, where starvation, dirt, and hopelessness were king. And here was something else, too. A mysterious murdering prowler who silently followed the sharecropper to his fields and struck him down, who entered every home. And once this visitor had arrived, they simply put their children to bed and waited for them to die. The visitor who left but one grisly calling card and left the next move up to death. And while 300,000 cases blackened the map of 1914 alone, science found a name for this thing, pellagra, but it found nothing else, and it sought for the microbe in vain. To Washington, therefore, came the cry for help. Send us knowledge to fight it back. A man named Joseph Goldberger was at work in his government lab. To him, the message that assigned him to spend the rest of the days of his life in that wilderness of ignorance and starvation. Go south, begin investigation at once. He made no dramatic arrival in the South, for Joseph Goldberger did not know how to be a dramatic man. He trudged along the backwoods roads on foot, like a plain old-fashioned doctor. Yet Joseph Goldberger, one-time immigrant of the New York East Side, knew poverty and death better than most men. Here also was that acceptance of misery that a doctor always fears. None guessed the ache that filled the heart of the man in city clothes, for he knew already that many of these children would die insane. He moved not to a fine hotel, but to a county orphanage, eaten out with pellagra, where he examined the children nearly every day, like a good doctor, laughing and playing with them, but hiding the fact that he knew that few of them would grow to manhood. Pellagra was so rampant here that all but 3 of the elder children were prey to the microbe. But why should just 3 children be miraculously well and the rest diseased? Here was a riddle for which there seemed no answer. But one night, as he sat attempting to piece the puzzle together, there was a noise outside his office, and this is what took place. The 3 healthy children, 3 little robbers snitching the infant's milk from the pantry. But why are these 3 children perfectly well? Could it be that we haven't found a microbe because one doesn't exist?
Yes.
What if this thing is simply a form of starvation? Action at last. Milk and fresh vegetables for every child at the orphanage. And in 6 weeks, to the man from Washington, the joy of knowing that there was not a single case of pellagra left. Very shyly, but secretly delighted with the suddenness of his victory, the man from Washington went to a meeting of local medical men to announce the news. Into the committee room, where they listened silently, then arose to laugh. Not sufficient proof. There was nothing left to do. Silently, he picked up his briefcase and left the room. And as he moved down the empty hall, he could hear their laughter behind him. Goldberger showed the world but little emotion that day. But in the silence of his room, he wrote to his wife of his homesickness and his longing to see his own strong children again. But he also wrote that he was going to throw down his final card. On the morning of April 3rd, by permission of the governor, he was granted entry to rank in prison and began selection of 12 men, explaining to them that they would receive pardons if they merely took a 6-month diet of typical food. The convicts volunteered with great eagerness. Preliminary tests indicated that each one of the 12 was in perfect health, with no tendency toward pellagra. To the men, a joke. To the doctor, the gamble of a whole career. The test in its 23rd day found 12 hickory-jawed hillbillies thinking they were in heaven. No work, and all they wanted to eat of exactly the same food that was eaten all over the poor man's South. Corn grit, hog back, and molasses. But with the public, trouble. The 98th day, your experiment cracking wide open. The simple food that so delighted the prisoners 3 months ago now disgusting them. The men turning morose, threatening constant riot. To each a profound hatred of the whole experiment. And not a sign that pellagra is a diet deficiency disease. Could you have been completely wrong? The 147th day, his assistant, Dr. Wheeler, wiring him to rush to the prison. The experiment must stop. There is no sign of pellagra, playing the part of the tough scientist as well as he could, but inside a sick dread that could hardly be hidden. The men grown vicious, screaming now for fresh meat and vegetables, armed guards now to force them to comply with orders once gladly obeyed, and no trace of pellagra. And the man from Washington stood them up and slowly, carefully, one at a time, looked them over. This, the ending.
What's the best kept secret about building a 6-figure side hustle? Well, I'm going to answer that question in 30 seconds. Hi.
Victory. Complete and all-conclusive proof. Only one source for pellagra, the food they ate. Now to nurse the men back to health and present the proof to the world. Victory. The incredible answer to Dr. Goldberger's discovery rings out from a dozen headlines. Greatest insult ever offered the South. A microbe still could have gotten into that prison. Ridiculous, premature publicity, unscientific. No proof, no proof, no proof, no proof, no proof. Could any man reply? Yes. Buried in the old records is the final act. Here was the classic move that has for ages been forced upon the pioneers of science. Take blood from the bodies of dying pellagra victims and pump it into your own veins. If there is no microbe, you are safe. If there is a microbe, your life can be the forfeit. And also in the record, let it be written that at this point his wife stepped forward. I too will have a part in this. And on the night of May 7th, 1916, these three saw that what they had to do was done. So end the records of a man who found the cause and prescribed the cure for one of the most dreadful scourges ever known to man. Into a test county he went with wholesome foods and swept that county clean. Then, of course, he simply returned to his job, working far beyond his own failing strength, seeking a cheap way of getting the life-saving vitamins to the poor. And he labored on to this. The year was 1929. But also out of 1929 swept the Great Depression. And in the midst of this depression, the dust storms that sent thousands reeling from the barren lands. And so, not only to the South, but to the Middle West, even to California, pellagra returned. For where poverty lives, there dwells pellagra. Joseph Goldberger found the cure. Science has since developed 100 treatments. But science, no more than Goldberger, can complete the giant work alone. Not until 130 million Americans complete the labor of one man's life will scenes like this vanish from the face of the nation.
So
don't buy solar panels. Seriously, there is a very good reason why we're saying this. If you're thinking about buying solar panels, don't. The U.S. government will literally buy them for you if you take 6 seconds to answer a few questions below. Hi.
Sorry about that. I gotta know how to. Oops. Okay. There it goes. All right. Sorry about that. So for those of you that stayed on, it's quite revealing, isn't it? How medical science is not really open to the significance of nutritional deficiencies. They've added it in because they were forced to, but it is interesting that this one person, and this is why Dr. Lee felt, because Dr. Lee was crying in that wilderness too, as far as nutritional deficiency. So you can watch the video again if you'd like. It's an old video back from, I forgot what year it was made, 1940s, I think. And read this article on Dr. Goldberger. But this is the reason why we have kept the product, Cataplex G. Now, of course, the new formulators at Standard Process want to change the name, but we're trying to get it to go back to continue to honor what Dr. Lee honored and honor Dr. Goldberger. And so you can see that the Cataplex G, just to take another few minutes here, just the extent of the nutrition in this product. And as I've said, all of these first 4 products, substances in order of importance, carry the highest amounts of that niacin, of that B2 and B3 factor: liver, yeast, defatted wheat germ, and porcine brain, along with some other things. And of course, I think they do put a little bit of synthetic niacinamide, which is a food grade. It's actually not a synthetic. That's a correction. And then the stomach parenchyma, the porcine stomach, for absorbing the B12 especially. So you can look at this, and then as far as the ingredients in the Cataplex G, and then you can look at, again, the symptoms. I went over so many with you, looking in the mouth, looking at the eyes, but other night sweats, burning feet, the redness, cracks in the corner of the mouth. Well, we looked at that. Eye issues, and of course, the sensitivity to light. So these final slides are simply ones that I've gone through with you before. But this is the anti-pellagra vitamin. So I guess the question really is, are we seeing symptomatology that is not diagnosed as pellagra, but are just minor versions of it? And as I say, yes, that's what I would say that this is. And so you can do the experiment yourself. You could certainly look at, and if you get someone with a lot of this symptomatology, redness in the hands and the eyes, other things need to be checked. Chronic cracks in the corner of the mouth or the tongue, which happens more in the winter months, but still a lot of spasms, eye issues, as it says here, the sand in the eyes, and the visible veins on the chest. These are I guess we could say pre-pellagra symptomatology, and hemorrhoids as well, chronic hemorrhoids that maybe collinsonia does not fully clear up. Think of this, and think of the tryptophan along with it, using 1 protofood a day, 3 a week. And so so it's good to have been with you, a nice hour and a half. And then next month, because I didn't have enough time as always, we're going to get into the other side, the B1, B4 factor of the B complex itself. And so thank you all again, and I will stop the recording here.
Thank you, Joseph. That was amazing. That movie, I can't believe it.
Isn't that something? Yeah,
Oh
Mark,
my God, that is amazing.
the great historian,